pondering about the best way to start a new set of writings. I'm thinking that Jackie and light are the ways to be. I know that I don't wish to get preachy, but should just emphasize positive values, such as the importance of finding purpose and meaning in our lives. Without these, you're done for. Of course, the Buddhists speak of the Eightfold Way, by which we can stay in the right. The Christians caution us against the 7 deadly sins, both what we should do, as well as what we shouldn't do. The power of Spirit's word is irreplaceable. Wealth and opulence tend to dilute the power of this word, which should probably be capitalized. If I don't save my work by clicking Save As, and giving it the file name, it will likely disappear, lost to time. Another thing about Spirit's word is the way in how most people share the same thing, verbally, conversationally, such as their highly regarded voice, their views, and testimony, their good honest accounting. Such generally is somewhat the basis of the respect they're shown, their good or bad influence in the world, such as that. I believe we should help those who are less fortunate than ourselves, and let God's discernment lead us in this. This is so important. At any rate, some of these thoughts are in my mind presently. If I deal with bad migraines, I might had better yoga stretch visualizations. The devil tries to steal life and cheat us out of what is ours. Did they not tell you about that? It would be bad if the devil was more organized and equipped and together than you are. And that's a good question, so you should practice thrift, and don't waste time about getting in touch with your higher powers for yourself. We all have guardian spirits. Do you know yours? At any rate, I'm trying to start some thinking for a beginning on my new part 3. Jazz will be like a slow start that builds on itself, selectively appending the past. Jazz might be inclined to keep it light and breezy, and avoid preaching, or speaking of what it doesn't know of. What is your strong suite in your life? If Spirit has blessed you with a talent, you want to give back of yourself. You just wouldn't ever want any additional suffering, or the path would quickly be put away. But if there's so much good work which can be found by using stream of consciousness, writing music and poetry, to find out what is in the human heart, mind, soul, and human spirit, these might be all we really have to show us the way. Through learning and garnering experience we can eventually come to understanding of such. At least you'll have a bookshelf of writings to show for the time. What else could be written of in part 3? The natural world springs to my mind. I think that, at our age, middle 50s, we're dealing with nature more than anything else. I think that the recent storms killed 30 or 40 people last Friday night. Then on Sunday, a new system spawned many tornadoes, and this system is still affecting us today, which is Tuesday. The news outlets aren't even talking about lives lost, or property damage that's been done. They are just keeping people informed about current weather, the ever-changing situation. This, which we deal with this week, may be the worst we deal with all year. Already, we're worried about these perfect storms, as these seem to be a total nightmare for those affected. But storms have always been perfect devils for those affected. This is nothing new. Today's times aren't special, except I think maybe in our information society. Medicine has powerful drugs, too. There's nothing that's much ever been deadlier than fentanyl. At any rate, these are some thoughts, this third Tuesday in May, this year. I'm not at a lack for good ideas this morning. If you're reading this, you're probably on a similar path to myself, so you should probably get your writing or sketching materials out, and get busy. Wouldn't that be an option you would choose? It would be, if you knew the good you could find therein. I would just as, couldn't we imagine our way to mental health, through seeing ourselves putting our hands and arms up past the sides of our face and head, and, as in the sun salute, allowing the pressure on the sides of our head to blend away and dissipate. This way works better than anything else for migraines that I've found. Just reach your hands and arms up stretched past the side of your head, and firmly press your arms against the sides of your head. Imagine yourself pressing the wrinkles out. Anyways, some of us may not have really cognized about some of the weather, how hazardous it is, until we read or find out the actual costs of these cyclones. Lives lost, and property, heirlooms, completely obliterated. It's impressed me pretty bad lately. But it will pass, and there'll be a good day or two, with no worries. We'll call this our weekend. Or it will be something else. But everyone gets some relaxing and recreation every once in a while. Usually once a week. This is when the eagle flies. At any rate, we may get to where any time without weather worries is our weekend time. Hopefully we keep from getting too concerned about things which we've got no control over. This includes most everything. Except our own persons. I guess it will be more pivotal to ourselves how our own actions reflect. You might well have seen how we should be. Sometimes have to be tolerant, no matter the evil. If you ever have to see a tornado in person, you'll know how bad they are then, for sure. I've heard that they're scary. At any rate, we go to the monthly meetings, and we all have to see our team, then we'll get back home. I'm writing to pass the time, while we wait. Trying to work, or study as opportunities are presented. I wouldn't want to let my own excessive worry time affect my writing, when there's nothing I could do to change it one way or the other. Worrying won't help it. You'll just have to have a safe shelter plan in place. At any rate, I'll keep writing in this, until I have 10 or 12 pages. I'll stop and see how far yet to go. Returning to my word processor, I'm impressed with, after years of spiritual walking, in all mental weather, how important it can really be to have a home base. Visualization. The meditation which it appears that the other meditations go along with. Such for myself, is definitely the sun salute. It's easy to pair such with a visualization about easing the pain of eyelash follicle inflammation, and plain old tenderness, of this follicle tissue, by focusing my awareness. I think that this is at the root of much of the pain that people experience, and it gets magnified, and amplified out of proportion, into just major living pains. All from this tender eyelash follicle inflammation. It helps me, also to think of how elephants have eyes on the side of their head, not in the front. Do you think that something like this might be the source of the lateral pain and pressure, on the sides of our heads, which some feel daily? At any rate, if this is so, this could be the origin of the figmentary life troubles which do sometimes trouble me. Such as this would be considered a serious condition, especially when you think about the trouble you could have saved yourself entirely, if the sides of your head just weren't throbbing, like that. Maybe, if you felt good, instead, the outcome would have been different. Maybe you can see this figmentary pain as the necessary pains of growth and change. But, I for one would relieve myself of such pain. Any pain. If I could do it painlessly. Holistically. With the right meditation practice. Anyways, just some thoughts. I hope you have a healthy and happy middle week time downhill, and keep optimistic. Well, at any rate, these words are coming to their conclusion now, so I'll wrap them up, and add them in with the others. Now, all for now, Greg. Till then, sitting down, to collect a few thoughts, and just see what is in my mind this morning. Indeed, I'm relieved when my distracted studies lead me, eventually, back to my word processor. I've listened to the recent audiobooks, and this one, and I can say, there's been some good ideas, through the last year. I was fairly contented to hear the good thinking, which prevails most of the time, in this. I've got about an hour, before I've got to get over to our office for my morning medicine, and maybe a bite to eat, to put in our microwave oven. Our day is beautiful, with brilliant sunlight streaming in, from the east, behind our apartment. There's no wind, or signs of any changing, so I'm going to look for a hot day, to stay inside, and keep cool. My main objective, other than this writing, will probably be to get some piano playing done, soon, but right now, I'm listening to the work of others. This could go on, for a while, but I'm just glad I've got some ability to focus on a set task, like getting this writing down, and feeling good about it, for hammering some piano out, into the recording device. While I'm sitting here, in between ideas, I'm remembering a video I saw on the internet this morning, about a shelter cat, that was slow in coming around to their new lady, but who did, eventually, on his own cat schedule. It just took him a while to warm up to his new owner, and then, he was inseparable. I'm thinking this, and I'm thinking, I'm like a cat, with a good new owner, and I've warmed up to them, and don't want to leave. It's only natural, and ordinary. I'm very shy of change. I'm no Superman. I've no wealth or independent means, and I'm glad I understand this about myself. I'd better make do with what I've got. As I sit here, I'm thinking of how, toward the end of my part 2 of this audiobook, my ideas got somewhat thin. I tell myself I'd better keep my mind on this writing, for nothing at all, which is part of what the problem is. My mind wanders, and having a focus, such as this essay going, is all I need for purpose and meaning in my life, and this relationship with a good group home family keeps me from losing my sanity, like a lost ship at sea. An apartment is a foreboding, alien expanse, without a regular tie to life structure, such as our meetings, and meals, and medicine. At any rate, I'm glad that I've gotten this new writing somewhat initiated, as this will definitely give me something to be around this day. My meeting's in 30 minutes, so I'll somewhat get this to a stopping point. I've found my new venture, and can rest in it. There are other recent pieces, which I can rest in, as I've done another successful composite ballpoint illustration, and put together a nice portable document featuring all of the similar composite pieces. So, I'm somewhat just glad for these wins, and thinking I should write for a while. It's just that I can get writing coming along without any difficulty at all. This would really be better than sitting on my hands. I'm thankful mainly for this beautiful weather. These sunny days this week are appreciated. I'm thinking that I've really found something in the new artists category. This person who's simply sending out so many great ideas, and so many approaches to the piano. My challenge is going to be to glean and learn from this person. Especially, I previously didn't or couldn't see the prevalence in this time period of such richly textured and nuanced and melancholic moods at most any time these days. But the sound of nothing, and this silence behind this music, is beautiful and strange and nuanced and melancholic and at the same time triumphant. Most any real non-doing is comprised of myriads of shades of gray. Now I can't see so much more in the now. Well, I sit on this bed, inputting these thoughts, hearing this time before I have to get to the office for my lunch and medicines. Some of these literary goals, such as making writing like this to be graceful and simple enough to be understood on a first time read through, required many failures and false starts to get right. I can usually say precisely what my heart wants to say. I've just got to have enough faith and belief in myself to hammer at a thing for a few tries to get it right. In other words, I've learned not to doubt the power of Spirit's word. She can make the thing make sense, even if it's hard to say. Just knowing her capabilities, I think, is a sense of having the power and being empowered for any good thing. At any rate, we're having sunny weather today and tomorrow, but Saturday is a return of clouds and rain for a few days. What's on my mind, then, this afternoon? Well, I'm thinking about how wrong it is sometimes to reference externally to oneself when writing, so I'm going to trim and snip and try and get this to where it's workable. It's also interesting how easy it is, lately, to do this referencing out beyond myself, and so this is kind of tripping me up. Of course, my benefits and best work usually are in the clarity and conciseness of my words. I've been very blessed and graced for at least 10 years with a strong writer's voice, which accomplishes what it sets out to do. If I'm speaking of science, then it's that. Or the art of writing, then it's that. If it's my audiophile listening hobby, then it's that. I was amazed, yesterday, how well the first article in part 3 came together, and flowed in after part 2. Hopefully, after I've written a little bit in this piece, it will be of sufficient length to add after the first article. I really don't know why I'm bogging down, like I am today. I think it's just the work needs to stay focused on me, myself, and not reference externally. But, then, too, my mind sometimes gets inflated, and I act paranoid, delusional, and get critical of myself. So, part of staying on my own ground is in keeping from blaming myself for things I have no control or say over at all. That would be paranoid, delusional. That's a symptom of being under too much stress, and of letting my depression weigh me down. So, when bad weather is relentless, like it always gets in the springtime, at a certain time, I start feeling the strain more, and I will speak of how weather is bothering me. That's how you'll know, then. you'll have some idea of what I'm dealing with. But, at any rate, I'm just glad when my appliances and devices are working normally. And so I can finish an article like this, and make it work. And so, don't worry about me. I know how to make it work. It's just that we've all seen some bad fails. This is true. When a bad fail gets reported on my radio or television, it's like, for myself, I didn't see that coming. Or, I sure wasn't expecting to see something like that. That was completely out of the blue. But, this is the season of the shirt pocket supercomputer. You sometimes see how people just get distracted. There might be too much information on some people's mind. So, here it is. Please, good Mother Nature, continue to pray for us, while we bring up more youth generations who are more enlightened and in the know than people have been before in this epoch. We're hoping people who adapted to smart devices early in their lives are better at managing the stress of knowing so much. We're just beginning to see young men and women who were in on this technology from the cradle. You might remember the previous book which said, How the World Time Stream is the New Way People Measure Time. The importance of information security. It's very important, whether it's mundane information or more complex. It has to stay secure. I've tried to search the search engine for any clues about my great-grandparents, who passed away in 1975 or 6. They made no digital records. There's almost nothing there. There are a few companies, though, who specialize in genealogy and in keeping up with family records in general. Someone or another told me she found out a lot about some of our great-grandparents' history in one online company. So, I guess such information is there in digitized form, if you are willing to pay for the information. But all I've got now is my own family's digitized portraits and records, made by my family members and myself. I have a lot of digitized family pictures, scanned from our albums, but not all of my mom's albums have been scanned. I've only got pictures of people who we visited and saw, who I would know. And then my parents, and sisters and cousins and uncles and aunts' digital pictures, made since digital cameras were ubiquitous with record keeping. Only in the past 30 years or so. Not even that long, but less time than that. But, at any rate, I can sense that these words are starting to come to their eventual resolution. I'll wrap this article up, and add it in with the others. Now, all for now. Greg, Tilda, a friend of mine, from my high school years, came across something really unusual recently, and she shared about it online. I'll try and explain what she found. On May 20th, 2025, there begins a series of 10 days, in which the calendar date reads the same backwards and forwards. This isn't going to read right with the text reading software, but I'll break it down anyway. May 20th 25 reads the same backwards as it does forwards. This seems to be a bit of magic produced by the pairing of 52 at the start of the series, and 25 for the year at the end. The day of the month second number goes from 0 up to 9, and this completes a series of 10 sets of 5 numbers, yes, 10 days in which the date reads the same backwards as forwards. Isn't that amazing? So, this has set my imagination running, and I thought, and realized, I must make a record of this anomaly in my writings, and save it for my memories in the future. I just think that this is a novel thing. I don't think it's the end of the world, because, if you're like me, you're really having fun these days, and something like this makes it doubly fun. No one would wish to jeopardize the game now. No one, especially when we can read about the 10-day Palindrome week on our shirt pocket supercomputers, and have a seamless jitter-free experience, with all the bugs worked out of the internet browsing, and our devices so refined that there are almost no errors whatsoever. At any rate, I've never seen anything like this before. I wondered if this is privileged knowledge, or if everyone has always been in on it, and just kept it to themselves. And with only a few who speak of it, like lone proselytizers, carrying a burden of numerological, or rather trivial significance. Well, this note will, hopefully start the third article, in the third chapter, of my Into the Future, audiobook. I'll get back to adding more into this adventure diary, after I've gotten some sleep. I'm tired. Have a good evening. Well, sitting down the next morning, I'm writing these words, while imagining my sun salute, hands and arms stretched up past the sides of my neck, and head toward the heavens. Having somewhat found this visualization to be the virtual answer to my life's problems, I'm considering the benevolence of Spirit's mercies, which seem to have saved the best for last. It's just amazing how that this works out in some cases, and I'm thankful to be in on such a marvel. At any rate, just some thoughts. Between my medium is tick familiar and myself, it does appear that we can solve most of the literary puzzles that arise in writing this journal. In any given line of text, there will be found its forthcoming corollary or antecedent language. I think that this way says it, in one sense, but in another sense, our spiritual lives are found to consist in a series of goals, with hazards and obstacles, which play into the lives of grown UPS. I think that both of these ways of saying are good. We're always looking to reveal in language the unmanifest of any given thing, but some will tell you that life's futures are written out already in the lessons of history, if we just know how to interpret these records. He who knows and understands the past controls the future. I think that this is where my parents were most insightful, was in procuring for my young self, around age 6 or 7, 3 complete 20th century encyclopedia sets, 2 World Book sets, and a young person's science encyclopedia set. Additionally, our extensive National Geographic magazine collection stayed on the shelves of my parents' den. My dad subscribed to this magazine for us, adding each new issue to the accumulated collection proffered from Dad's parents, mainly for we kids to familiarize ourselves with history and science and nature. He who knows and understands the past controls the future. In a perfect world, wouldn't this be both a good thing and a bad thing? Or would the perfect world consist in only good days, undistorted by the evils of men's insanity? I mean, we were encouraged to watch the morning news magazines on television every morning. I appreciated the perspective such afforded me, but such never tried to crawl in through the window onto us. I never felt personally impacted by world events, until, and only until, I had put my own best work forth into a world community of readers on the World Wide Web. Ever since then, which was for me, the year 2000, I've only reluctantly looked at what happens each day, because in addition to the good, there's the bad, and the sick. It always hurts to see anyone getting mentally sick when my work is online, as it's been. So, your internet publishing always seems to build in yourself ever more sense of social responsibility and conscience. At least this is how things go ideally. But, life's just like how things go in any mentally challenging times. There will be those who didn't get help, then they should have, like you did. You know, when you asked someone for assistance, or for help, or perspective in understanding something that was too difficult. Some guys just want to be alone with their thoughts, and this was my own trouble, and I had to learn to seek perspective on my life from those around me. This can be the work of the mental health care system, and it makes a really big difference in some people's lives, like a shift from alcoholism and drug habituation into wellness. But, of course, people have pain in their lives. This is why they drink and take pills in the first place. So the cycle of addiction kills most people that it grips. Very few find the cessation or cure for their pain. But such nevertheless can happen when you start basing your life around honesty and truth, rather than childish sneaking. I think that eventually the good outmeasures the bad in a person's life. This happened to me, kind of beginning with psychoautomatism, in which nearly complete poems started coming through my hand, moving the pen by power unseen. This was my window into purpose and meaning, and hinted at a guiding angle behind my life, this automatic writing. Spirit's higher purposes began to be served by myself, and such eventually brought me around. It's always good to retell this story, because we should remember that Jesus is still saving souls. Why is such a warm and tender name so often scoffed at by worldly interests? By worldly concerns, I'll always be reluctant in some ways to use the name in real life. It's so tender. Life is so hard that it appears only the strong survive. But if you ever are among the survivors, he or she can show himself to you. I think it also has to do with this notion of how, with enough voltage and wattage, we can rouse the dead. The only simile that suffices, or approaches this concept, is that of guardian angel, someone who tenderly is your best interests in mind, at all times. But, it's good to remember the tenderness of the heavenly fold, because it's what people go home unto. Even the dirtiest of sinner will have a guardian spirit who receives him or her to the afterlife. Anyways, it's difficult to focus on such Gentile things when one is in the time of exertion and of earning, through toil and attentiveness, the word of a blessed book, or chapter, or album. But we sure can. At any rate, these are a few of the ideas which come my way this morning. I'll wrap these ideas up and add them in with the others. All for now, Greg. Till then, starting in with some new ideas. This morning, we've got good prospects for a good, rainy, partly sunny day today. It's very good to be in a good part of the world, and to have no worries. But of course, we pray that good people will help with storm cleanup. Of course, weather is happening even now in our area and elsewhere. Our temperatures are unseasonably cool, with this potential rain and storm moving across. Especially the southern plains are getting too much rain, and they're already at flood stage. We'll get some rain, too, later this afternoon. I've gotten my Bluetooth keyboard out, and paired it with my phone, so that I can write these ideas easier. It's so good, in the cool morning, when you have ideas, and can get them right into your work. I notice, in through here, that there's almost a nausea in my eyelash follicle tenderness this morning. This must be the trouble of the time I'm given. If I can alleviate such with the right meditation focus, I'll definitely do so. At any rate, I was thinking about how, for us, here, Sunday is a day of rest. But for those whose homes were obliterated in last week's weather, there's no home to rest in. I would imagine that there's no end to the cleanup work for many of those people. If you've got health obstacle, like a back pains issue, then you would be handicapped. You would have to take it slower, trust the EMA, or else hire professionals to take care of it. But who has savings, with inflation the way it is? I know that most people have to have homeowners insurance, but much of your cleanup, you would have to do yourself. There's a principle I found in life, which goes something like, if you have to do a thing, due to life circumstances, then you definitely will do it. When, and only if. Most people enjoy, and keep up their independent living, their independent lifestyle. But, someone like myself, who has been in group home living for a long time, is somewhat on what having hard luck feels like. Many people don't ever learn of this way until they find themselves in a nursing home, in their old age. They take great pains to keep their independent lives and establishments up, and never have to learn about loss of freedoms until late in their lives. Their inner spirit keeps their lifestyle up for them, and they don't stop to think about it. Many people never think too deeply about the invalids, the handicapped, and the challenged. But, instead, their lives are kept in the arms of an angel. Isn't my own life is kept in the arms of an angel? Yes, overwhelmingly in the affirmative. If you ever have to go in a nursing home, or surrender some of your liberties, you'll be kept even closer then. And you might just find that some of your greatest friendships come when you're assigned a roommate, and when you're placed in a group of people who you yourself didn't choose. You'll appreciate your liberties more when they're metered out to you. I promise. Once you get past your need to placate and feed your substance use issues, you'll gradually learn to only love the tender, loving care afforded by healthcare professionals. If you have to do a thing, I would tell you, you will do it. Hopefully, not until. At any rate, this line of thinking started when I thought about those who are less fortunate, especially those whose homes and lives were disrupted by the recent bad weather. You would take care of a challenge like that if you were placed in a circumstance in which you had to. Not until. At any rate, this article is just getting along down the page. But I've got to get over to our office to get my morning medicines. So, I'll have to find a stopping place. I'm sitting in this cool morning air, somewhat waiting for our group's medicine line to get shorter, before I go inside the dining area. It's nice listening to the birds, and a dog barking from across the neighborhood. It's easy to criticize our society when you're somewhat outside of it. I used to really enjoy my normal routine, my job and other areas of my life, like my banking and taxes. I took for granted and took care of myself for some happy, fun years. But they were alcoholic years. Now, all I use is coffee and tea. Professional people take care of everything else that's required for me. So man, be conscious of what you have. I have a spirit that keeps up writing music and art for myself. I'm endlessly grateful, but I remember some of what I had before as well. But the books I've written and piano albums are, in truth, more real than anything that was in that old lifestyle, except for the illustrations I make to go in reports at my lab job. And I unloaded a lot of trucks of groceries at my night stocking job. That's pretty real, too. Even now, there's a whole lot that I take for granted. There's never been any serious issue at any of the homes where I've ever lived. No bad weather destruction, no crime, no corruption that wasn't solved with a reprimand and a word of instruction. At any rate, I'm very blessed and grateful. So, you can see how this is a conscious life we're challenged to have and keep. How, if we had to go to heaven tomorrow, we maybe see things might not be what they appear to be on the surface. There's no more coffee or nicotine for my hand-mouth fixation. It's a thing of the past. But there's a new heaven and a new earth to get acquainted with. Oh, life has tried to make me jaded and tired of the inner blessings of any good bright morning. But I can't see now, in the quiet and serenity of a lovely Sunday morning. They're just precious. There will be readers and other family who make me feel like my thoughts are important and meaningful, and I'll try to take them for granted, but I won't do it. I'll remember. Well, this has been some thinkins. I'll wrap this article up and add it in with the others. Now, all for now, Greg. I thought I would add a bit more thinking onto the last of this Into the Future, Part 3. This beginning will comprise the 5th essay in this Part 3. Our outdoor temperatures are hot and humid, and we're cautioned about the risk of bad weather today, coming from out of the south and west. But I'm expecting a continuation of the recent natures we've been seeing for a while. Today's the 4th and last Monday of this month. I've often thought how doing stream of consciousness art, music, and poetry can be instrumental in understanding the human heart, mind, and spirit. Does this make any sense? Can we resource the presences around and within ourselves, basically accessing the deep wellspring of local animate intelligence, in the crafting of an art of conscience? This itself is a good question. This will be an issue when men's wild natures get caught between desire, consequence, and circumstance. The media and mystic writers' concerns become topics for gossip. At any rate, I would ask, can we tap into such creative principle without losing control or getting hurt? Is the value of good work, like a spiritually conscious art, worth the trouble? If an artist is in possession of this inherent duality, won't his or her worth be decided, be measured, by either his work's quality or abundance? For both? Or something else? At least that's my question. It's gotten very hot sitting in this direct morning sun. I'll get indoors and ride sitting on my bed. When you're inwardly accessing presences of past yourself, you really have to be discerning. If there's one thing that a spiritual writer, or maybe a mystic poet or artist knows, it's the necessity and requirement for an inner guide. We have to remember that a successful writer will be something more than himself alone. I believe that we can have a trusted, mediumistic familiar who takes our hand, in much the same way that a family guide would, I think, lead the departed soul into and through the afterlife. I think that the same concept is operant. It's just true that when I had a serious self-injury 22 years ago, I for the most purposes died to this world. I somewhat had gotten cornered into being on the receiving end for some of life's troubles. At the end of my rope, in September of 2003, I tried to end it all. It all but worked. I became guided into the world to come by a guide who I trusted and still trust to this day. I don't exactly mean that I floated out of my body and went up to heaven, but my experience was somewhat similar. I was given insight into deep secrets, such as what it's like to be guided, and to know carefully the difference between good and bad. I began to see that my writing was guided in this way, as like a ghost in heaven. and I had a good measure of the ascended insight and understanding into many truly secret matters, and God's will in my life. His will for me, I gathered, was to become closely shown to me thereafter. Because, gradually, I grew to walk in more or less complete unison with some benevolent departed family members. However you may feel about the afterlife, while I still made mistakes, I became more or less guided closely by the good, benevolent spirits. You've seen these guides work in my life, in the form of my guided writing, music and stream of consciousness art, in general, going back numerous years into my past. So, you've seen the good Lord's work in my life, though I might not proclaim it from the rooftops. See, you should see that not all of one's family members are related biologically to the person. Some will be related by marriage only. This is what I think can be the work of a trusted familiar. This guidance work, which is shown to one's writing, or music, or art, by the trusted familiar. Someone who works mainly as a functionary to help you always make the right artistic choices in your life. So, we're not just haphazardly courting chaos or discord in this type of thing. We're not anarchists either. We're enlightened sojourners into a kind of family heritage. We're builders of a legacy. If I am walking with my higher power, then this will be true. At any rate, I sit on this bed writing this in the afternoon, and am getting some clothes washing done. I'll be glad to get this 5th new article in my 3rd and latest part of this new audiobook. This will suffice to fill out the length of this new chapter, so that it will be more comparable to the other 2. I hope that you can see that the good ideas herein are surely given for the best results of this new book. I'll be glad to hear the audiobook version played back. This writing process is progressing well, also, and these are just the latest ideas. At any rate, ideas such as this go into this new project. Today's Memorial Day, and we honor those lost on the battlefield. This is a special acknowledging and mention of such. I've just been appreciating our values, the good place of our Bill of Rights in our society, and our liberties. I somewhat feel that getting my latest audiobook shown in a new directory, yesterday afternoon, was a good idea. This might just reach a few new listeners, who might will benefit from a new perspective on the same thing. At any rate, I think that I can glean insight into the writing of new work, such as this, mainly if I can somewhat grasp onto the flow of time, and garner new insights into the future through this. We'll probably have gleaned some of the smoothness of the flow through this book. We'll find our place and station in this world. At any rate, this writing is coming along well now, and I'm glad to somewhat have the words within myself to say, to speak to this time. I hope that I can be the outstretched hand you need. Sitting after supper watching the birds through the sliding glass door, I can say that I somewhat regained some sense of dignity and grace since getting free of a difficult living arrangement, which, although I as a rule don't complain, was a source of constant irritation for numerous years recently. It's just good now seeing things in the better groove at last. I hope my recent work reflects this turnaround. At any rate, I'll add a few concluding thoughts into this essay, and think about wrapping it up for inclusion in this latest audiobook part 3. I hope that I brought some sense into someone's day, and that we find what we were trying to say, after all. I'll wrap these ideas up, and send them along your way now. All for now, Greg